Welcome back to the arcade. My name is Vince, and in this video, I'm going to show you guys WebVR inside of the arcade. It's pretty cool. So WebVR is WebGL and VR together in your browser. To show you guys this, I'm going to cast from my Oculus Quest to my phone with this nice little Lego mount that I created to kind of collect what I'm casting and show you guys all about it. And while I do that, I'll talk about kind of the ins and outs of every game, starting with the arcade itself. And the cool thing about WebVR is that it's free. It's on the web. You don't have to install anything. It's just you hit the URL and off you go. So I'll put a link. I'll put all the links in the description, so you are more than welcome to play all and any of the games you want to check it out yourself. And that'll be in the description. And hope you like it. So to start off, the technical side, I use Unity and the Mozilla Unity WebVR package. Looks something like this. And my first couple passes were just getting the integration and the package to compile and deploy, which was pretty straightforward. However, getting the VR to work with an existing project, the arcade project, was a little bit more involved, and took a couple weeks to get to where I'm at. But I'll show you where that is. It's pretty cool. So let's get started. All right, so our first one is arcade. The arcade itself, our 3D store, and that's the Oculus browser loaded into the WebGL version. And then we enter the VR mode, and there it is, kind of in a web VR type setting, tied to the Oculus Quest. And the left analog is movement. The right analog will orbit the camera around the avatar. So it's a 3D environment, and the headset and the virtual space feels pretty good. There are no optimizations. There's no post-processing. There's no anti-aliasing, and it still feels like it's all right. It's, it could use a little bit more optimization on the frame rate. There are a lot of assets in the scene, but all in all, it felt pretty good. If I can get some post-processing and anti-aliasing going, maybe some fog, I think it might work really well. But that's the arcade. And so let's jump to the next one. All right, so the next one is Microids. Microids is our take on asteroids. And you control a little craft. And you're in this environment. This particular environment, there's not much to it. It's a simple skybox with some particle system floaters in the background. But even with that, you still get this sense of depth and presence in this big void, and on this microscopic level, which is what I was going for, and it feels really good. Since there's not a lot of assets in this particular game, the frame rate didn't seem to be an issue, and it was actually a lot of fun to play. And it lends itself well to the VR, looking around. So you're looking in front of your ship where you're shooting at, and it just felt good. I might look at the mapping of the buttons to make them a little more intuitive. The thrusting, I might put a trigger on the triggers instead of buttons by default, and get and retool this a little bit. But for them, and the HUD, I had to turn off all GUIs in all games because it was on a different camera, and in order to do the VR, I had to take the 3D camera and split it up into the left and right camera. But yeah, Microids lent itself well to VR, so I was pretty happy with that. And then as it gets more chaotic, you get more kind of immersed into the gameplay. And then when enemies start coming out, it's just another layer. And it feels pretty cool. So overall, I would say that Microids was pretty cool in VR. All right, let's jump to the next one. The next game is Lander. So Lander is our take on Lunar Lander, and it's a 3D environment. What I didn't expect in Lunar Lander is that in VR you can look all the way around, even behind you, and there aren't any models to kind of fill the space behind you. So if you can look past 90 degrees left and right, you'll see that, you know, how it was built, kind of the wizard behind the curtain. Also, with Lunar Lander, the physics of the craft is tied to the frame rate, and so because the frame rate wasn't high enough, like 60 hertz, the craft could never lift off the platform. But you could still look around and check out the environment, and it was I don't know. I'd like to give it another shot when I can get the frame rate up a little higher. But that's Lander. All right, let's jump to the next one. The next one is Supa. Supa Off-Road. So Supa is different in that one, there are a lot of assets. So the frame rate was hard to get up there, and this is probably one of the games that needs to be heavily optimized. But you know, you could play it, and the VR probably could be retooled so that the follow behind camera would probably be better to be like kind of a god camera, like you're looking down, almost like the original Super Off-Road, where you're just kind of looking down at the game. But I don't know how well that would lend itself. I think it'd be pretty cool. In fact, if you're looking at a arcade cabinet, I think there could be a couple buttons to change the camera, to toggle the camera between follow camera, god camera, and maybe something else. But that is Supa. All right, let's jump to the next one. The next one is Traverse. Traverse is our take on Monkey Ball. Not much was done for Traverse, really just getting it to work. However, the follow camera and the tilt mechanism for Traverse was not good for VR. The actual looking around in the environment was cool. And I enjoyed that, but the actual camera has to be fixed, especially the tilt, the monkey ball tilt when you move, didn't work at all. So that is definitely something that I would want to revisit, porting this to VR. But other than that, yeah, the low poly aesthetic really lent itself well to the VR platform. So, yeah. That is Traverse. Check it out. All right, let's jump to our last one, Fray. So Fray is our take on Joust, and it is similar to Microids in that you're playing the game on this 2D plane, and you're also boxed in where it wraps. You go far left, it wraps right. But you can see that if you look far left, far up, you'll see again the wizard behind the curtain. You know, there's no assets up there, and you'll see the skybox. So the skybox in this case probably should be black to better blend with the actual game background. But the actual gameplay itself was pretty solid, was pretty fun. So I enjoyed it, and I think that this will be also another kind of um, good title to play on arcade. Yeah, so those are the games, and check them out. Check out the links will be in the description, and keep in mind that these are all alpha. They're intended to be like research and development. They're not intended to be kind of long term things at this time. But I am thinking, I'm strongly considering an Kickstarter or an Indiegogo to really flesh this out and make this something special on VR. So look out for that. All right. Oh, hey. So that is WebVR and the arcade. So what are the big development takeaways from all of that? There are many, and developing in VR is kind of takes its own mindset in many ways. Uh, the first the first thing that I had to learn is GUIs. You can't do traditional GUIs on an orthogonal camera. You really need to put all of your GUIs in your 3D scene, um, so that they can, have depth with the left and right eye, and they have to be pretty darn close to the camera in order for you to interact with them. So all the games so far, I just turned off the GUI. There are no GUIs, but in order to bring a GUI back, it'll have to be kind of a 3D GUI and right in front of your face. And because you can be pointing your head anywhere, the GUIs need to kind of track with your head, like lazy track, and I'll explore that. But the entire GUI system will have to be overridden. The second thing is 3D space. With Lander, with Fray, if you looked 90 degrees left and right, you'll see the wizard behind the curtains. You'll see like there are no assets kind of framing you in, and you look behind you, you'll just see skybox. So in a VR environment, you kind of have to model all around you, and so that'll have to be retooled and done for each product. Um, the next thing is camera movement and like screen transitions. So with traverse, moving, staying close to your object and tilting, doing that monkey ball tilt, really didn't feel right. So uh, it could be a fixed camera far off, but that might change a little bit of the gameplay. But the idea, and I think both Supa and Traverse need to have kind of more of a God camera where you're far back, you're looking down, and your controls really don't impact the camera much at all. You still might in Traverse need to orbit around the ball, but Supa probably work better for like a traditional retro camera where you're just looking at the game board and you can kind of move around. The last thing, was scale. I still need to wrap my head around the scale. So the idea in Fray and Lander, all of them really, is that when you move your head, you know, which is roughly what, about a meter left and right, I wanted to see the left and right of the game board themselves, right? And that real 3D movement, that distance of about a meter, translates to about a meter in game. But in game, a meter, or one generic unit, is about the size of an ostrich in Fray. So you really don't get that lateral movement that you want. And the end goal is what the far-reaching goal would be something very immersive, where you walk into this virtual arcade. You take your virtual hand, you grip the virtual joystick, And you can hit buttons or hit buttons on the controller, but it'd be cool if you could hit change your camera on a button, just like old games where you change the camera, player one, flap 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 flap. And I wanted to be able to move my head and see almost as if the game board was on this 2 foot by 2 foot monitor. So if I went like this, I could get my head right up to that ostrich. But right now, because it's based on real world versus in-game scale, which is roughly a meter the size of an ostrich, I never could do that. So I really love the ability to kind of get that immersion, both with the user controls and kind of the scale. So the board felt like this monitor that was 2 feet in front of you. So if you actually lean forward like this, you could just get right up next to those assets and just like check them out. Maybe even push pause and just look at the game. And I'd like to explore that a little bit more. In fact, um, I might start a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo just to kind of flesh this out and see if I can get some support for it. So stay tuned for that. In fact, yeah, definitely check out all the games, all the links, and just see what I'm up to. And there needs to be a bunch of optimization. And I don't know how this will run on the Oculus Rift. I'm hoping a bunch better because it's got just CPU and GPU to spare. But it is nice playing on the Oculus Quest. It being a known quantity. With WebGL, you don't know what kind of graphics card the end user is going to have and what resolution they're going to try to run the game at. Whereas with the Oculus Quest, those things are a little bit known more. So you can optimize the heck out of it. All right, well, so that is my development in WebVR. I hope you liked the video, and if you want to see more, subscribe, and hope you have a great day. All right, bye.